Hi guys, welcome back to SwitchUp. We're going to do things differently this week because, well, why not, eh? We're going to do an equal split of games you should buy and games you should absolutely avoid because they stink. I'm going to try and give you as much information as I can as to why you should buy and avoid, but also a congrats to the person who won our free game from last week. If you want to win a free game this week, then just let me know down in the comments. What game would you suggest people avoid and why? If you enjoyed the channel, do subscribe, and a big thanks to all of you as we approach 125,000 subs. Madness. A big thanks to the guys over at Phoenotopia. They've actually sponsored this one, which is amazing, and it really does help us out. All the links to their game will be down in the description. I highly recommend checking it out. We've reviewed it. It's an absolute stone cold classic. What should we buy or avoid on sale? Let's find out. First up then is a game that I didn't pick up until this very sale, and it's currently 65% off. It's called Fury. It's like an action-adventure fighting game that combines a fast-paced sword fighting one with a dual stick shooting one. It's very quick, and I do like this art style. It's like a cross between Origami for the main character and that Breath of the Wild low poly look without a cel-shaded aspect. You hopefully kind of know what I mean. It's not the longest game, around about 7.5 hours, but if you want to complete everything, you're looking at more like 20 hours, and has a download size of 4.7 gigs. It holds a Metacritic user rating of 7.3, so it's a good game but not a great one, but well worth picking up at this price.
Fight for your freedom.
Thanks to Phoenotopia, they've actually sponsored this video, but let me tell you, I love this game, and they've just released a big patch which makes it much better. If you're not sure what it is, it's a really cutesy Zelda 2 style action-adventure game that has a lovely single-player narrative-driven story, over 10 different weapons and tools that you can equip to your character and use them on the fly with a quick toggle, and 50 different enemy types to fight, as well as loads of bosses, and the music is amazing. The guy who made the music grew up practicing Chrono Cross on his piano. But the only real criticism when it launched was that it was far too difficult. Now this patch changes that entirely. Not only does it fix a ton of different bugs, they've rebalanced a lot of the difficulty aspects and just made it a bit more approachable. Much of it comes from just rebalancing certain things that were either way too difficult and caused the player to get frustrated, and they've provided a touch of clarification with some of the puzzles that were just too vague. There's a good amount of fixes for dialogue and little bits and bobs like that. But overall, it's still a brilliant game. I absolutely loved it. Got in the 80s, but now after all these revisions and patches, I think if I were to re-review it, it would probably go up to the 90s. It's a great game, and if you maybe left it because it got frustrating, please do go back to it now that it's had this patch. A big thanks to the developers and their team. The game's going to take you around about 25 to 50 hours to complete, but has a relatively tiny download size of 752 megs. As I said at the start, they really put all their eggs, money-wise, into this basket, and it deserves to do well. It's a brilliant game. One game that I would avoid, personally, is Nickelodeon Kart Racers. It's currently 75% off, taking it down to £6-ish. And the reason I say avoid it is, it has dropped in price week on week on week, because, quite frankly, it's just uninspired. With the IPs they had, this should have been a great kart racing game, and is it that difficult to make? I mean, it must be that difficult to make a really good kart racing game, because everyone that tries it just seems to either mess it up or put a feature in that just doesn't work. This has got 24 different tracks and 12 iconic characters, so it should be fantastic. And let's be honest, you stick your kids in front of this for £6, it could be one of those moments where they're like, "Mummy, Daddy, can I have Mario Kart?" And you're you're like, yeah, we've already got that one. And then you boot this up. It has a 4.9 rating on Metacritic from users, and the main game's going to take you around about 3.5 hours to bust through once. Next up, we've got 90s RPG inspired Legrand Legacy Tale of the Fatebounds. I've mentioned this a few times, but this is twice the saving they've previously had. It's 90% off, taking it down to £1.79. Oh my word. It's a little dated in some of its aspects, but it kind of wants to be. It has full-on FMV sequences, and it's a turn-based JRPG that, yeah, essentially it just takes everything that Final Fantasy has and does that in their own way. If I remember it correctly, there's quite a cool little timing based element to the combat to make it a little more interesting than just press a move, press a move, press a move. And as you get further into the game, there's a larger aspect where you'll be commanding different tactical battles. I quite enjoyed this, but just know what you're getting into. It's not a stone cold classic, but it's a semi-decent 90s style RPG. It has a download size of 7.5 gigs, and here's where it's a bit of a 50-50 one. On Metacritic's user rating is 5.7, so maybe not for everyone. The next one you should avoid is the Goosebumps game. This was out for about 3 seconds before they cut the price in half, and then again it dropped continuously, and then it's just every week it goes on and off of sale to try and boost sales because it's just not a great Goosebumps game. Coming from the very famous R.L. Stine books, I think they could have done, and should have done really, with the budget they could have had, much more than this sloppy mess. Why is it that when you call something sloppy it just sounds so rank? It's an adventure title with hand-drawn backgrounds inspired by the novels, the book series, but it's just poor. Every aspect to it is weak, and the puzzles themselves, they don't offer a huge amount of challenge. For me, this would be an absolute avoid. Halcyon 6 Starbase Commander definitely gets hidden gem rating from me. It's a retro space strategy RPG that has base building, tactical combat, crew management, and an emergent storytelling design, which is actually really clever. You'll have to spend your different resources to build station facilities, the different rooms that you've got, or you can build ships themselves to help you control more of the territory. You have to assign your fleets to nearby clusters of stars, and there are different story events that pop up from time to time to keep things interesting. Now I know loads of you are going to look at this and go, no, that's rubbish. I promise you, for this price, £2.99, 80% off at the lowest ever price, this is such a good game. If you played anything like this back on PC, you'll have an inkling as to how it's going to play out, but it comes highly recommended from us. It's only 890 megs, so not a huge size there, and I know Glen spent around about 10 or 20 hours so far playing this, and I don't think he's done everything, so yeah, well worth the money. Man, one other game you should definitely avoid is Swaps and Traps. I'm so fed up of absolute garbage shovelware, and what the developers do is they reduce the price either down to like a penny or a cent, and then they wait till it gets up into the charts, and then they will crank that price right back up. So by downloading this, even though it's free, they're just going to crank the price up, and then poor hapless fools will end up paying full price for this. Look, it's okay, it's absolutely generic. It's the artwork, the graphics, oh my word. I mean, it's a game, that's the positive I can say about it, but you only live once, and really don't waste your time on this. Oh, it just annoys me. Right, let's move on. Alright, man, I've got to get that one out of my system. It's brilliant to see Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch so cheap. It's 70% off, which is its all-time lowest price, and you've got a good amount of time as well if you haven't got money right now or whatever the situation is, because that sale goes on until this September the 22nd. Now the artwork from this, I'm reliably informed, was actually produced by some members of Studio Ghibli, which is amazing, and developer Level 5 have done a great job. I will say that it's a bit slow in the first few hours, and for me personally, I played a couple of hours and I was like, well, what's all the fuss about? But then 10, 15, 20 hours later and I'm absolutely hooked to it. It's a very long game as well. It's about, well, I'm slow, so my estimates don't really count, but for me it's about a 70-hour title, but you could probably bust it out in maybe 55 hours, and if you want to find absolutely everything, you're looking at closer to 90 to 100. Other than those lovely visuals, it's that music by Joe Hisaishi which just stood out to me. Plus, don't forget Drippy, his companion. He is awesome. There's a tiny bit of a Pokemon aspect here. I say tiny, I should probably say huge, where you have to tame familiars, which will then help you take on different enemies, and there's quite a bit to this one, but yeah, this is the biggest price drop we've seen. I would certainly add this to your collection. It holds a Metacritic of 8.0 for the user score, and it has a download size of 5.7 gigs. Okay, after that absolute gem, let's head towards Turdville with Street Basketball. Now this is essentially a Flash game, isn't it? A Flash game ported straight to Switch, and oh my, it's 80% off. They normally charge what, $6? Man, you couldn't pay me $6 to play this. It just looks awful. It's currently 80% off, taking it down to $1.19. There are loads of different characters to choose from. Great. And look, this is why people say the Nintendo Switch just has rubbish games, because of rubbish like this coming to the top of a sales, you know, it comes to the top of a sales week because everyone's like, that's cheap, and then it's just an embarrassment, isn't it, for all of us? Street Basketball, no thank you very much, see you later. Ugh, that last one's made me feel like I just ate a turd sandwich. Next up, we've got God Eater 3, which is a brilliant game. And do you know why I'm mentioning this one? I mention it because I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter. And if you're a fan of the Monster Hunter series, but you've not played the God Eater series, I highly recommend it. It's the lowest price it's ever been. It's 67% off, taking it down to $19.79. And the sale goes on until September the 22nd, so you've got a good amount of time as well. Now, unlike Monster Hunter, this one has 1 to 8 player online play, which is very cool. You can link consoles and do 2 to 4 player, just LAN play, I guess. And there's tons of content here. It's very quick, so the combat's a lot quicker, I would say, than Monster Hunter in terms of the motion and movements of your characters. And you'll be wielding different god arcs, which are the weapons you carry. And I guess, as with Monster Hunter, it's that customization aspect of your weapons and your gear that really makes this one an enjoyable and addictive experience. I mean, you know what it's like. You go online, you've got your new armor set, your new weapon. Absolutely no one cares, but you think they do. Man, I gotta go play Monster Hunter. This one's gonna take around about 40 hours to complete, but if you want to find apps and do absolutely everything, and obviously you've got the online aspect, it can go on and on and on, but in an actual enjoyable way. It holds a Metacritic user rating of 7.2, so it's not quite Monster Hunter levels of good, but it is a really enjoyable time and a bargain price. My last avoid then, I'm afraid, is going to be Summer in Mara. Now, it's not a terrible game. And, you know, I reviewed it, I thought it was all right, but I really didn't enjoy the fetch questing. I don't mind fetch quests, but you can't do just that. There has to be some other element that's enjoyable. And in this one, the sailing is lame. It's like it's just, I don't know, it's got a motor in the back, there's no change in speed, there's nothing like that. The questing is poor. It's the same thing over and over. You go backwards and forwards, to the point where it becomes farcical. You'll have done 6 trips backwards and forwards looking for an old kettle. Get the old kettle, turn back up, and they're like, oh no, that's the wrong one. Send you all the way back to your house. And then there's the house and the island aspect. That should have been amazing. That should have been absolutely fantastic. And there was a tiny bit of customization, like you could do a bit of planting and you could plant some trees and blah, but there was nothing there that hooked me in any way, shape or form. There's no sustainability on your island. Like you can't be self-sufficient. You obviously have to go back to the town and buy seeds and stuff like that. But unfortunately, to make the money to get those seeds, you've got to do that boring fetch questing. It's just weak, really weak. And unfortunately, I think if I went back and re-reviewed it, since I've played it quite a lot more since, and I just I just don't think they did enough. Plus the performance is poor even after the first patch. So there we have it, a very different week, not the usual, an equal split of buy and avoids. Let me know if that's useful to you guys, because let's be honest, we have no space, and it's better if I pick out the very good games and the very bad ones, and maybe you'll be able to save as much as you spend. A big thanks to all of you who watch the channel. We really do appreciate it as we head towards 125,000 subs. There's more people than live in my town. That's crazy. To our patrons, thank you also. And as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya.